Greetings again. We are looking at the different kinds of prayer. You recall Ephesians 6:18 in particular says in the little Greek, praying with all kinds of prayer in the Spirit. So we're looking at the different kinds of prayer. So far, we've looked at the prayer of consecration and dedication. Then we looked at the prayer of commitment. Next, we looked at the prayer of thanksgiving, praise, and worship. And then after that, the prayer of waiting upon the Lord. And then last week, the prayer of watching in the Spirit. Now, this week, we're going to look at the prayer of petition and supplication. Now, that one may not sound real exciting, or you may say, well, I already know what that is. But do you really know what petition and supplication is? What would you say if somebody came up to you and said, what is the prayer of petition? Define it for me, would you please? Or how does that differ from the prayer of supplication? What's the difference between petition and supplication? Could you define that for me? So a lot of times we just assume that we know a lot of these things when we fool ourselves. We take it for granted that we know some things that we don't know. So we want to look at the prayer of petition and supplication. Or again, this could be two prayers, prayer of petition and the prayer of supplication. We just lump them together, the prayer of petition and supplication. We're going to start out by looking at 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 1. Paul says, I exhort therefore that first of all, supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men. So there he says, first of all, supplications. We're looking at the prayer of petition and supplication. We're going to look at first the prayer of petition, then we'll look at the prayer of supplication. But notice that word supplications there, also the word intercession, giving thanks, as well as prayers. The word for prayers there is the most common word for prayer and simply speaks of just asking of the Father, asking of a superior being. So prayers, but we're going to look at supplications and petitions. It's interesting, in the same book of 1 Timothy, he goes on to say about widows that a widow indeed is one who trusts in God and continues in supplications and prayers night and day. Supplications and prayers night and day. Now we're going to look at supplications, but first of all, let's look at petitions. The prayer of petition. What is the prayer of petition? It's interesting, these different words, prayers, supplication, petition, thanksgiving, request, etc. When we turn to the great theme of prayer, we find there are no less than 7 Greek words that picture the concept of prayer. Now, it's not to even mention the Hebrew words that picture the concept of prayer. And these 7 Greek words are then translated into various English words, such as intercession, supplications, petitions, requests, prayers, etc. But as we define these things, we always want to remember that prayer is communion with the one true God. In its simplest form, in its basic form, prayer is communion with the one true God. We talked about that in the very beginning of this series on prayer. So when we come to pray, we come to commune with God. And we always want to remember that all prayer, all true prayer, is directed to God and God alone, not to people, not to quote unquote saints in heaven, not to Mary or to other gods. True prayer is directed to the Father in the name of the Son, Jesus Christ. Now, let's look at petitions. It's interesting, in the New Testament, the word petition is only found 3 times, and only 2 of them have to do with prayer. Now, it's also found in the Old Testament, but only 1 time. So It's interesting that this is not a real common word, but the word for petition is a word that we find used quite frequently. So, what is petition? A petition, well, let me say this, even though it's only found 3 times in the New Testament in the Greek, it's from a root word which is found 71 times. So, the idea of petition is very, very common, just translated differently in that root word ask or request, etc. Petition is literally a request, something asked for, and it also has a connotation of demand of something due. A demand of something due. Now, lest you misunderstand, I want to clarify we're not demanding of God anything, but there are times where we demand of the devil certain things that demand him to take his hands off our body, demand the demons to loose a certain person and let them go, demand that fear leave, demand that depression or discouragement leave, demand that oppression leave. There are times when we demand something that is due, and that is part of the prayer of petition. A request, a thing asked for, a demand. It's from the root word which means to ask, beg, call for, crave, desire, require. Now, it's interesting. I think I said that the word petition, I had said that the word petition is only found once in the Old Testament. I misspoke there. The word petitions, plural, is only found 1 time in the Old Testament. The word petition, singular, is found more than that. I think it's about 13 times. I'm talking about in the King James Version. So let's look at some of these occurrences of petition or petitions. Now, one of the most notable ones is in 1 Samuel, where Hannah, she prayed. It says in 1 Samuel 1:27, for this child I prayed, speaking of Samuel, who became a mighty prophet of God in all of Israel. For this child I prayed, and the Lord hath given me my petition which I asked of him. So again, here we see this idea of petition being a request, something asked for, something craved or called for. She said, I prayed and the Lord gave me my petition. She was able to conceive and bring forth Samuel, turned out to be a mighty prophet of God. All right, so we're going to pause there. Again, remember to share these with other people and subscribe on YouTube and hit the notification. And this week, especially, I want to encourage you to be mindful of making your petitions, your requests, your supplications known unto God. If you have needs, let them be known unto God, but not just for yourself, but for others. As you're aware of different needs, petition and supplicate for other people and believe God. He hears and answers prayer. We'll see you tomorrow. Shalom.